Well, hey everybody, we are back with our next episode of 6 Feet Under Exhumed, and I am Kari the Mortician.
I'm Faith, that mortuary professor. This is season 3, episode 10. The title is Everyone Leaves, and we open up at a family picnic. It's Keith's family, so it's his mom and his dad and his great aunt, and she gets stung by a bee, has an allergic reaction, and dies.
She's
And
75.
he's
I don't know if
75.
it's his great aunt or his, oh, it is
Maybe
because
it is his aunt. Well,
I mean, she's
75, if he's,
75.
I don't
Maybe.
know.
I didn't even realize it was his family. I
Yeah.
didn't, I did not make the connection until at the actual funeral.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
was like, oh, that's who this is.
Yeah.
It just didn't even dawn on me. I didn't recognize the characters, the actors as being his mom and dad
Yep.
being there. And yeah, it happens quick. I always think that that has to be like someone who dies from an allergy or like asthma as well,
Yeah.
where you see them kind of struggling and you're not able to do anything and it's
Yeah.
not like a fast. It's a bit of slow. And I think that there's one kid I cared for and buried that had died of asthma and I still think about him if I go in the cemetery and stuff just because that was one of the first he was one of the first people I had dealt with that had had a reaction to something,
Right.
and I knew that it had to have been like a bit slow and people wanting to help and your parents having to watch that and just sad.
Yeah. I don't know. In this little iteration of it, she died in about 12 seconds, which is
Yeah,
not realistic.
no.
However, yeah, I don't know. That's got to be, and I guess didn't have EpiPens or whatever, but I
Yeah.
don't know. But anyway, she dies from a reaction to a bee sting, and
And then
that's
we
it.
dive over into our next scene is Rico and Vanessa going at it hot and heavy
Yes.
and going to dance class and just living life. And I'm like,
Well, I
what
think we
happened?
forgot to mention in the episode before, her coworker gave her some kind of medication.
Cocktail.
Yeah, that was not prescribed to her, and so we don't know what she's taking now.
Yeah, they were in a closet
Hmm.
in where they were giving out the medication for the patients because she works at a nursing home.
Yeah.
And the nurse is like, well, see, if you take one of these, this will counteract the Lexapro or whatever she's on. And so you're not going to feel so down, blah, blah, blah. And then you take this because of this.
Hmm.
So she's given her and taking from patients and giving her the stuff and saying, okay, try this, this, and this. And so she's definitely changed and the medication's doing something. Because she's a wild sex machine and a dancing machine. And Rico's like, okay, this is great. The medication's working. And he's
Yeah.
just thinking it's the antidepressant that all of a sudden, has made a difference, which it has not.
No,
And
no.
then the next scene is super confusing.
Okay.
I was confused because this guy comes in and says he wants a better casket, and you don't know who he is.
No, he's just a random guy. So, like, I guess there's another death, but we don't get any information about who or what or where. It's just Nate and a guy talking about he wants a better casket. And then he
And
starts crying.
and Nate's like, no. It was weird because he's like, we're not going to do that. And
Yeah.
basically was telling them, no, no, we're not. And it was just weird. It's like when they edited the show for the week, they missed putting in the context part.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just out of place, and you didn't get any other information, and you never saw the guy again or anything like that. So it's really strange.
Yeah, it
So
was odd.
I don't know what the point they were trying to make with that, because he's like,
No.
oh, that's a perfectly fine casket. You don't need to spend all this money on somebody because they're dead and all this. And it's like, I don't know if they were trying to somehow make the point that like funeral directors are not salespeople, I appreciate that if that's what they were trying to do, but it was so just out of nowhere, that, because I mean, funeral directors aren't salespeople. I think that's a very common misconception. So if that's what they were trying to do, good for them, but it didn't really, it was just weird out of nowhere kind of thing.
That is weird. Um, and you don't think about it too much right in the moment, but then you realize later, like you have no idea why that all happened. So and then we go to Lisa is saying goodbye. She's going on a trip. You
Yep.
don't quite know where she's going. She's going to see her
She's going
sister
to
or
stay with her
something.
sister for a couple of days. Yeah, she's going to her sister's house, which is a drive away. I'm not sure how long, 5 hours or so, I think he says, something like
Yeah,
that,
it's
five,
a
six
couple, and
hours
she's
away.
excited to go on a drive and get away.
Yeah.
And, um, it's kind of nice, but she is acting a little odd. And because I know what comes up in the next episodes, I don't know if the first time I watched it, I thought she was odd or I recognized it because I know what's coming.
Well,
And
what
I
was
don't
odd
want to give
about it,
stuff away, but
yeah, I think what was odd about it is Nate was like, well, do you have a list of like what I can feed? Because you know how she was always like,
oh,
what
she's
we
so
have to feed her at
anal
certain
about all of it.
times and
Yeah.
do all these things. And she was like, no, you know what to do, which I think that was kind of like, that's not,
Well, and he said, should me and Maya come out and say goodbye to you? And she goes, no, I don't want her to see me leave.
yeah,
And when she said that, I was like, huh, like, what does that mean? It just was
yeah,
odd because she's so attached and controlling and all these things.
right.
So it was like she was far too light and bright about all of
Yes,
it.
yes,
Um, and a lot just kind of came back to my mind. And I don't want to talk about future, but
yeah.
a lot of things all of a sudden just clicked with some future episodes too. It's weird, like the more you look back and realize, but and Ruth and Arthur, oh God bless them, are having conversations about their relationship. Ruth's like, where is this relationship going? And I'm like,
Ruth
what
was like,
is,
why haven't we had sex?
yeah. And
And she's like, Arthur, have you ever had sex? And he was like, I think so, which is no. So,
so naive in some
yes.
weird ways. Like where did he come from? What was his upbringing? Like we just don't know enough to know
No.
like why. Aside with, Rainn Wilson is just amazing at his characters.
Yeah, he's just a strange guy, but for whatever reason, I mean, she just straight up asked him, well, we've been seeing each other. Why haven't we had sex?
And it's not like, and it's
Can you
weird
hear
because
that? My dog just decided to start barking. I'm
I
sorry.
heard something, but
It
no
was
big deal.
him. Okay.
When it's not like they've been like dating, the only place they've really gone is he went with her to the art show and they watch movies once in a while and talk. Like it's, it's
This
just
idea that, yeah,
weird.
she made it sound like they were like in some relationship, and I don't think he realized that they were.
No, I
Like,
think
I don't,
I don't know what and I don't know, does he see her more as a mom and he just likes having a motherly person around? Or, it's hard to tell kind of what their relationship is because I think she sees it as a like a dating and he, I think just, I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
it's very awkward. But she kind of gets the hint that like that's not what it is to him. And I think he kind of gets the hint that like that's what it is to her. So now it's just awkward for another reason,
Yeah.
you
It's just
know.
odd. The whole thing odd. And it just kind of stops. That's the last we kind of really see them for a little bit. And we get to Dave and Keith, and they're going to this funeral for Aunt Jeanette.
Mhm.
And as always in TV land, it's a graveside with, headstone already installed and
Oh yeah.
weather and blah, blah, blah. And but what I love is that Dave jumps into funeral director role. And this is me at every funeral I go to, like I'm straightening the person's clothing and I'm like touching them. And my kids are always like, Mom, stop touching the person. I'm like, it's fine if I touch them. And they're like, but you're
Yeah.
straightening their shirt. You're doing
Yeah.
whatever. And I don't go over the top. I'm not too crazy, but I am such a nitty detail, like,
Yeah.
but so he ends up like passing out folders and telling someone when they should start playing music or talking or something. And, he,
Yeah, he was like talking about how they had like the bobcat visible,
yeah.
and this guy comes up and he's like, "I'm the organist." I'm like, "You're at a graveside. What do you mean you're an organ? What are you talking about? What do you?" I've never had an organist at a
It's an
grave.
LA thing, Faith. We wouldn't
Oh,
understand, I
excuse
guess. I
me.
don't know.
I don't know where the organ was. We never saw that.
It's one
And
of
then
those like at the circus where it's like a truck organ where it goes. That's all I can
it's
picture
one of
right
those
now.
like things you crank the. I was like, what are you talking about? An organist or at a graveside? Where's the organ?
When should
Like
I play? Should I
even
start
a
now?
even a keyboard, you're not going to haul that out to a graveside. You just have a
No.
speaker, but whatever. So that was weird. Yeah, and then he's just like picking apart all these little things and
And I think it's hard.
oh,
I think like being a funeral director is not like every career. Like it is a who you are all the time almost. And
yeah,
so it really is hard to turn it off when you
yeah.
attend a funeral. It's hard for your emotions to connect in where they need to be. It's hard to not be looking at all these details that maybe you would have done differently. Doesn't mean it's better, but would have done differently, questioning things. And it's hard. It's hard not to be that person when someone you love is the person who's died.
I always think it's interesting though, like when people who aren't funeral directors have criticisms of funerals because it's always like stuff like they don't, you know what I mean? Like why is this or that? It's like because that's what the family wanted. What do you mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's always been funny to me when you are at a funeral and you're a funeral director and you hear somebody else kind of critiquing something and you're like, well, why did they do that? Because that's what the family wanted. What do you know, like the things that they don't realize, like families decide and choose is really strange to me. You know, why are the flowers this? Why didn't they? Because that's what they ordered. Like, I
Yeah.
don't pick the flowers for people, you know?
Well, people jump to assumptions always when it comes to
Yes.
funeral directing, I feel like, because that's where some of the bad press comes and the bad talking and oh my gosh, I went to this and this was done. No, that's not how it was, or it had to be a bad embalming job. No, you should have seen what we started
Should
with.
have seen it before. Yeah.
We just had this last week, which this is not something new. You have an ID view, which means the person is typically on a dressing table. They're on a table with maybe a blanket over them. They're not embalmed, and a
Yeah.
few family members are coming to see them before cremation. And
Hmm.
then you have the person who invites everybody, posts it on
Oh,
Facebook. You
yeah.
get all the people showing up in there that are coming in to see the person, and they've never seen someone not embalmed. They've never seen someone just on a table. It's not a public viewing situation, but then they come in and they don't understand what it is they're walking into. And then it's, oh my God, can you believe what the funeral home did? They didn't even put them in a casket because oh, we're going to make up a reason. And oh my God, they look terrible. Like they were super dead. And it's, they don't know the whole story.
Yeah.
Sorry, things happen. And it's just, oh, it just fires me up because it's people assuming it's us or it's something we did when it's family chosen, family directed, cemetery, which is not the funeral home or, whatever it may be.
Yes.
It
We just get everybody's
irks me.
nasty. Yeah. No, everybody blames everything on us. And it's like,
Well,
we actually are in control of or decide very little.
yeah, we make sure it's all plays out well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the family gets to choose a lot of things, and we can recommend and help them to put it all in the right perspective and the right path and
Hmm.
timing and such. But, we're not coming up with this stuff just on our own, some of it. Now, Arthur and Ruth are ick, but we're gonna go even icker, guys. So then we've
Good.
got Brenda and Billy are sitting hanging out, having a conversation. Billy's acting uber weird. And we've got
So
Brenda,
Brenda has moved in with Billy,
which is odd.
which is stupid. Why would she do that?
Yeah. I think just
I don't
who knows? She needed a place, thought maybe it was safe. It is not. It is not.
know.
And I think there's stuff in the past that she doesn't remember from them and their relationship too, maybe from when they were young. And I think there was things that happened, and they kind of allude to
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
That they were two kids put into situations they shouldn't have been when they were children for almost experimental, I
Yes.
think, for this book and for all of these psychiatrists and stuff. They were kind of, their parents allowed them to be specimens in some ways.
Yeah, they did not
Weird.
have a normal childhood in any way.
And we
But
have Brenda now who's clean. And so it's a different perspective of Brenda because she's very with it, I think, and very keen on what's happening around her. And Billy's acting really
hmm
weird and talking really weird. And you're like, we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. And then he kisses her. And you're like, oh gosh, we went there.
yes.
And it's super not out, it's out of the blue from what their relationship kind of had been before. But yeah, I think it was not so much out of the blue for what maybe years and years ago their relationship.
No, and I think, in past episodes, you always got the idea that like something wasn't quite right, but
Yeah.
it wasn't that clear. And just from her reaction, you can tell this is not something new, right? Necessary. She's like, no, no, I'm not doing that. No, not like, what do you like? You can kind of get the idea that something like that has happened before.
Yeah. And she runs, I'm going to just stay on that storyline.
Yeah.
She runs to Nate because she doesn't know where else to go. She doesn't have a home there yet again, it looks like. And Nate's having just had a conversation with Lisa. Lisa's talking to him. They're having a really nice conversation. She's sitting staring out at the ocean.
Yeah.
Is just saying, it's been a nice drive, and they're just having a nice conversation about, Maya and everything. And then it kind of starts cutting out, like her reception isn't very good,
hmm
and that's it. And
Yeah.
then Brenda shows up to Nate's. They end up having a kiss, and then it's like, oh, this was not okay. They both kind of, feel bad, like, oh, that was bad. Um, and so, and that's it.
These
She
people
just,
have no self-control.
no. Nope. And then Nate tries to call Lisa
Yep.
because he's got some guilt and she's not answering. And so that episode kind of ends with him a bit worked up because he's feeling bad, trying to call
Yeah.
wife at the moment and realizing like, why isn't she answering? This is kind of odd.
Yeah, she's not even been gone like overnight and he's already, you
It's
know.
weird. Yeah, not able to get a hold of her, and
Yeah.
it's kind of odd. Claire lashes out at the teacher, so they kind of have
Yeah.
or no, Claire's man does because he's
Yep.
saying stuff to Russell, and Russell kind of lashes out and at him and kind of storms out, and you you find out more later. That's one thing I wish is like it's very soap opera-y where we're not getting to the point fast enough to some of these storylines. Like this should
Yeah.
not be a storyline that gets drawn out this long.
Yep.
Sorry, guys, you should have mixed in more dead people and more of that stuff
Mm,
and a little less of this other
yeah.
crazy stuff. Um, Vanessa, they keep going back to Vanessa and her being on something. I mean, she's obviously tripping. Like she is seriously having problems, like getting all sweaty and heart palpitations. And Rico's like, what is going on? She's like, I just need my medicine. I just need a pill. I just need a pill. So she's like taking another pill to offset what the first pill or the third pill did.
Yep.
And she's like, that's how you OD. That's
Yeah.
how you get to where like we've cared for people and they've had like 14 medications listed off on their death certificate that they were taking
hmm
at the time of death. And
Yeah.
your body can only take so much of that. So it makes me a little nervous, like if something's going to happen, because I don't remember what happens with their storyline. Let's see.
I think it's weird when they go to Keith's parents' house after the funeral.
Yes.
And then Keith is like, this is like, he sits down with his dad and he goes, I've been in therapy and I've learned that you traumatized me from, being how mean you were. It's like, that is not a good way to have a conversation with your parent. hey, I've been in therapy. You know, all those times you beat me really fucked me. That's not gonna go good.
And not on the day of their like a funeral. Like it's already
Yes.
fueled by emotion. This is not going to go in a good direction.
It was such a weird thing to say,
Yeah.
just so aggressively and so like what in the world did he think was going to happen?
It didn't go good.
No, that his dad was like, "You're right." No. And so, they get into a fight and David kind of gets in the middle of it and they kind of, say some mean things about them being gay, so David leaves but
Yeah,
it's just in what world do you think that is an appropriate time, first of all, and second of all, an appropriate way to have that conversation?
I don't think he thinks. I think he is just a train wreck of a snowball right now,
I guess
just
so.
building towards something. He's in like self-destruct mode a bit. And I think to him, sometimes because he knows his dad will come at him with fire, I think he almost is asking for it because I think that he, like, when that's a relationship you've had and it's always kind of tumultuous, it's almost like that's your normalcy. And it's almost like he's seeking that maybe by doing like, let's poke the bear because I need to fight right now or something,
Yeah,
I
that
think.
makes sense. I mean, he might be trying to instigate it, but yeah.
For why, I don't know, but
Like, well, I don't think your therapist told you to just go up to him and say that, so you probably weren't.
that's not the healthiest approach.
No, that's not the best way to do that. So that all happens.
Ruth and
So
Claire have a conversation
yeah,
about men. I love these mother-daughter moments
I do too.
because I'm happy that Claire got to the point that she allows her mom to be a mom and to listen to her. And I think it's as she appreciates her more as a woman and Claire becomes more, of a woman and they can have these talks and, they're talking about men and stuff. And Ruth says, I got pregnant the first time I had sex. And then that's been my life.
That's yeah.
And so I think that was kind of a realization for Claire, like, oh shit. Like if I like can I imagine being with the first person and that'd be my whole life and
No, she's
so
already had so
young
much
and
more of a life than her mom had, and she's only
yeah.
like 20.
Yeah. So I think she has such a new appreciation for her mom and I love that storyline. I love
I do too.
watching that. And that all the kids I think appreciating mom for who mom.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of nice.
yeah,
So we kind of end with everyone's going to bed in their own places. And you've got Nate calling Lisa over and over and over and scene. And
yeah,
so we've kind of leave a lot hanging with Vanessa and the drugs and Keith and Nate not or Keith and Dave not talking again
yep.
and Lisa possibly missing. So we'll see what happens in episode 11 next week, guys. Next week is called Death Works Overtime. So we'll see what happens with that. It could be interesting. That makes me wonder, like, all right, who's gonna die? Like, is the main character gonna die? Like,
I kind of was hoping that they would have an episode where like they get like 10 calls in one day.
I want to see a death
I
spike.
know.
Yeah, of
We haven't seen that yet.
we
We've seen like
haven't,
a slow period, but we haven't
yeah,
seen where you literally get like 10 calls in like a day and a half.
or like a mass death
Yeah. Yeah.
where multiple people in a family or like a bus crash or something, or that
Yeah.
I'm wanting mass casualty. But
Well,
we should list one of these times, like think of causes of death that we haven't really seen and see if they happen coming up. So
yeah,
you
that's a good
guys,
idea.
you guys should make like drop in the comments. What are some causes of death we haven't seen yet in this that are maybe not completely off the wall, but we just really haven't seen? Because I think just when I think, oh, we've maybe seen about everything, they do come up with something new. And it's
They
not
do.
like radical. Like next week's death is nothing wacky. So
No, I mean, it's all stuff that does happen. It's, maybe
yeah,
not the most frequent thing, but again, I'm still waiting for one that I haven't seen myself.
yeah.
So, They do a good
Interesting.
job, but I
Yeah.
would I would like to see like just where they get inundated with calls and can't keep them, don't have to like rotate them in and out of the cooler and that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's interesting. And next week does get a little bit busier. So we'll see what next week
Yeah.
brings. All right, guys. Next week, episode 11. See you then. Bye.
Bye.